When dark falls over London, its £28 billion night economy draws people from across the globe. But there's trouble on the dark side.
So we finally opened up London's 24-hour night tube. But where to go? In the past decade, half of London's nightclubs and 40% of music venues have shut down.
Gentrifying neighbourhoods are silencing the noisy. Others disappear for luxury flats. Anger too about licensing and closures. GQ magazine said London has the worst nightclubs in Europe, policed to within an inch of their lives.
I'm the Night Czar, I'm working with the mayor to...
So the mayor appointed Night Czar Amy LeMay.
As Night Czar, I have some overarching goals, one of which is to make London the most diverse and dynamic 24-hour city in the world.
The coolest job in City Hall is part-time and walks a tightrope. Party hard and safety first.
We have had some issues, so we've had a few restrictions onto our licence. Yeah.
Tonight in Kingston, Amy's being shown the club's security demanded by police.
When these first come in and the police were like, oh, you must have it, you must have it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Aside from the random breathalyzer tests, an extraordinary procedure unfolds.
Everybody has a driving licence or passport. Just sit back and look into this camera for me.
All this in a nation that refuses ID cards.
We'll check them in the queue as well to see if they're drunk or anything else. We may put them out of the queue before they even get to the scanner. Then the second stage is going around the corner.
Right.
And they have a full search.
I might be put off by this.
No, I'm sure a lot of people are put off. Going through this airport-style security does put people off coming into Kingston.
Too much security. We're good people.
Facing cuts, London's former police commissioner said fewer pubs and clubs would help reduce police workload. The Met sees no contradiction in airport security and fun.
Where there are reasonable measures that you can take to reduce or mitigate the risk of these sorts of things happening, then I think that's a sensible expectation. You wouldn't travel on an aeroplane and not expect there to be some form of security, but you appreciate that that comes at a cost.
We live in a world today where risk aversion is the key thing. The police is around health and safety first, and whenever there's an incident of any kind, rather than saying how do we have our judgment and discretion to solve that, there's an attempt to regulate and close down. And that doesn't solve our problems, but it will end up shutting down our culture.
But it's not all about law and order. Powerful other forces stalk London's nightlife. Hands up who wants to live next to a noisy music venue.
For over a decade, the loud, much-loved George Tavern, Stepney, stood alone. It's noisy, so why is Tower Hamlets suggesting developers turn derelict buildings around the venue into luxury flats?
45 flats, 3 AM music licence, really lively, very, very noisy. We would have endless complaints. It would be a nightmare. And when you get a complaint, environmental health have to deal with it, and they take your licence away. That's fact. This pub would not survive without its music licence.
The council votes on the plan later this month. Noise has closed countless other venues.
Developers get everything. I'm one person fighting this battle. They've got pots of money. I just feel we're not appreciated.
Across in Shoreditch, under the last arch of a bygone railway, the Village Underground venue feared closure as luxury hotels surrounded it.
37-storey, I think it is.
Oh my
it's going to be.
The Night Czar has come to support a radical solution.
The fear is that the noise that we make will suddenly become unviable for our new neighbours. You can imagine the TripAdvisor storylines, oh, terrible baseline, I couldn't get a night's sleep, and suddenly you're in a ruck with your new neighbours. That was our fear.
Worried about Shoreditch losing the very vibe attracting developers, the council made a radical demand that new hotels soundproof themselves.
Hackney Council helped us to negotiate those into their planning conditions. So a hotel moving in next to a music venue cannot have the music venue closed down because they've been there for a decade making noise and it's been fine.
Yeah.
Tall glass skyscrapers on one side.
The Night Czar wants this rolled out across London. But just up the road, a different problem. An eviction protest in Hipsterville. The Passing Clouds venue helped give Dalston the cool that made it ripe for developers. When the tenancy ended, the rent tripled.
Although the club was very popular and successful, it still wasn't going to match the potential return that he would get if he was to develop it for residential. We've invested in the vibrancy of the borough for 10 years, and then just for basically one person, one property developer to come along and just rip that out of the community is extremely brutal.
I suppose we just look like the ugly face of capitalism, where we bought a building and kick out a tenant. That's obviously not the case. Hackney over the last 10 years is probably quadrupled in value. Name me any private landlord that is going to underlet his property by 50%, because I don't know any.
Passing Cloud supporters are trying to crowdfund buying the place. Others have just given up on having a base. LWE deck out old buildings for one-off events. They say promoters are the last to get paid and the first to be blamed.
The world-famous Piccadilly. Over the decades, how many drunken men have fought over women on the dance floor? Well, this is the story of one that closed down an entire nightclub.
It's New Year's Eve and a £200 a ticket cabaret turns into a brawl over a girl at celebrity haunt Rara Rooms, Piccadilly.
Throw a punch and that's a start of a general brawl.
It got nasty. Broken glass was used. 2 needed stitches from wounds. Police knew who threw the first punch. They arrested no one, but then asked Westminster to revoke the club's licence, even claiming an underage 17-year-old was present, since proven untrue. There'd been just one other attack last year.
From basically the 1st of January when the incident happened, we've not opened since. There's in excess of 30 staff that have been now made unemployed. Because we have a licence that is attackable, that's what they're choosing to do. And to the extent now, whereas after 10 years of quite serious investment into Westminster and loving the time that we've been here, I personally won't reinvest into Westminster.
Why not?
It's like having a gun against your head. There's nothing we can do to prevent someone having an argument. All we can do is control and manage it.
Westminster Council declined the police closure request, but heavily restricted entry hours. Allen's selling up. The Met deny targeting venues rather than criminals.
If you've got a responsibly run nighttime economy premises that are abiding by the conditions of their licence and actively working with us on a voluntary basis to make it safe, I can't think of any example where we would come down instantly on a single isolated incident. In fact, the approach we take is balanced and graduated.
He's going to put on a good smile.
London's new Night Czar has no wand, but a lot of hope.
My first 3 months in the job really has been spent talking to people. It's us versus them. It's the police versus the punters. Look, there's another American on the other side of the pond building a wall. I want to build bridges.